Greetings to all. I, Animesh Upadhyay, am back with another episode of Off the Desk by the Law Culture. In this episode, we'll discuss gig workers, platform workers, and COVID 19. And to discuss on the same, we have with us Diksha ma'am, who is currently an associate in Khaitan and Co. Mumbai office. Diksha ma'am is an associate with the Employment, Labor, and Benefits Practice Group at Khaitan and Co. As part of this practice group, she advises on labor and employment matters, focusing on a range of issues from employment terms, workforce redundancy, business closure, to prevention of sexual harassment, disciplinary process, and diversity and inclusion. She also has a keen interest in the area of research and policy making, and hence takes care of teams' advocacy initiatives by making recommendations to central and state governments on labor reforms. Aside from these, she has a number of publications to her credit, including with International Bar Association and Walters Kluwer. She was also a contributor to the World Bank's report titled Employing Workers 2021. It's an honor to have you, ma'am, with us, and thanks a lot for sparing time for us from your extremely busy schedule.
Thank you so much, Animesh, for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, as we know that there is only one labor code which defines gig workers and platform workers, that is Code on Social Security, and that too does not exactly clarify what they are. So, what problems can arise, in your opinion, because of this lack of clarity in the definition of these two concepts?
No, absolutely, Animesh. I think the definition of gig worker and platform worker has caused some confusion. There are people who are even asking why there are two definitions, because if you see both the definitions, the idea is that both gig worker and platform worker, they are not workers with whom an organization has an employer-employee relationship. This is what anyone would understand reading the two definitions. The only difference one can see between the two definitions is that in case of platform worker, there is an online platform where this platform worker is rendering services. For example, we have Zomato, we have Urban Company. So these are all online platforms that connect the service provider with the service recipient. And the service provider in this case is the platform worker. But if you see the definition of gig worker, it says that such worker falls outside of the traditional employer-employee relationship. And that concept even applies to a platform worker. So what I mean to say is that platform worker seems to be a narrower concept. It falls within a wider concept of gig worker. And yes, you are right. Other than the two, definitions, there isn't a lot of clarity as to who can really be considered as, a gig worker or a platform worker. There aren't any guidelines, examples given under the Code on Social Security. But it seems that, the government was pressed to, recognize these concepts under the new labor law framework, because so far they didn't receive an express recognition under the labor laws that have always focused on, people having an employer-employee relationship with organizations.
So, ma'am, amidst the pandemic, we have seen that gig economy has turned out to be one of the best sectors of our nation by providing variety of services, be it delivering medicines to delivering food, or gig workers are now the essential part of our economy, and we need them on day-to-day basis. So, but still they do not have many benefits under the new labor codes. What is your opinion on this?
See, I think it's a very tough question to address, because India is now seeing a really, a booming phenomenon where a lot of startups are coming up, and their business model rests on such kind of an arrangement where they are engaging these people on an independent contractor basis, meaning that there is no employer-employee relationship with them, and so they are not supposed to, basically comply with all the labor laws that exist in the country, because all of them focus on an employee. So, so one concern is that if a recognition is given to these workers, recognition of an employee, then even the business model of these organizations might collapse because they are engaging these people in thousands of numbers, right?
Yes,
So there is one concern in relation to the businesses, and then of course there is a concern in relation to these workers who have constantly been asking for, certain minimum benefits for themselves. So I mean, if you recall, a couple of years back, certain organizations, certain associations of these gig workers came forward, filed a petition before the Delhi High Court, asking for setting up a committee that can examine whether they can be recognized as an employee and whether they can get the benefits under labor laws. But there was no headway, on that front. So it's really a very tricky balance to meet. So the government has tried to do that by not, on the one hand, not saying that these are employees, and on the other hand, giving them at least social security benefits. Now, when I'm saying social security, I'm talking about life benefit, health benefit, benefit in relation to accidents. So the government plans to formulate a scheme under the Code on Social Security, which will provide at least these benefits to the gig workers and platform workers. So in a way, there has been an attempt to balance both the interests. And if you see the provisions of Code on Social Security, there's a provision that says that aggregators who are engaging these gig workers, they might be obligated to make certain contributions towards the scheme. So they will have to contribute a certain percentage of their annual turnover for towards the scheme that will be set up by the government. So yes, there is some obligation being imposed on these aggregators also. And people are saying that Code on Social Security is the only legislation that is giving certain benefits to gig workers, but that's not the case. If you see the motor vehicle guidelines on aggregators, even those say that the cab aggregators are supposed to take insurance for covering the life and health of these workers who are working for these cab aggregators. So yes, I can say that on the whole, there has been some attempt made, and on the judicial front, yes, we still lack any form of judicial precedent that clearly tells us whether these workers can be recognized as employees. So on that front, we are still lacking. But at least on the legislative front, I can say that there has been some attempt made to strike a balance.
yes, ma'am. Correct, ma'am. So, ma'am, like, how to make platform management into responsible corporate citizens? Like with gig work, there is no fixed workplace, and the task component is very different. There are gender issues in the workplace, especially the pay gap, which is a very real problem, and protection from sexual harassment and abuse is much needed. In an office or factory, the workplace is well defined, but that is not the case with the gig work. So, how can these issues be resolved, ma'am?
So, if I understand correctly, you're talking about sexual harassment and other forms of misconduct being committed by these workers, and
Yes,
how
ma'am.
would you resolve those issues, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so yes, I think on that front, uh, at least as far as the employment laws are concerned, though those do not address this aspect because, like I said, for example, we have Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act. Now, this act lays down certain model standing orders which establishments need to follow, and they basically set out different acts that can amount to misconduct. And on in respect of these acts, if they are allegedly committed by a worker, then the employer can initiate an inquiry and then impose appropriate penalty against these workers. Again, the underlying idea is that these workers need to have an employer-employee relationship. So yes, on that front, people have been asking that there should be some detailed guidelines that can regulate this gig economy sector, because the labor laws do not address this aspect. So while we have recognized that we need to give social security to give gig workers, there should be, a larger concern that needs to be addressed. I mean, there is a larger concern that needs to be addressed, which is in relation to abuse, because on an everyday basis, we are, coming across cases where the customers are alleging harassment on the part of the gig workers. So again, like I said, while government has done a good job in taking care of the interest of gig workers to an extent, they should also take into account the other concerns in relation to other stakeholders who are part of the gig economy. So like I said, that there was a petition before Delhi High Court, and then again there was a request for setting up a committee that can examine all these aspects. So I think that kind of an involvement must happen. There should be a committee that can take care of the interest of all the stakeholders, including the customers. I think that is definitely the need of the hour.
Lastly, a message for our viewers, which mostly comprises of young lawyers and law students.
So, Animesh, I think the one thing that I've been advising a lot of students is that they should actively participate in the policy making process. I know a lot of students who have amazing research skills, which they deploy when it comes to their extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities like moot court competitions. But I think when it comes to policy making, not a lot of students come forward and offer their recommendations. Of course, one thing is writing articles, papers on a particular topic and offering recommendations. But I think in addition to that, you should also participate whenever you get an opportunity, in terms of offering recommendations to the government. Now, when it comes to the labor codes, the government first released the draft codes, a couple of years back, and they invited the public to offer their recommendations on those draft codes. Then once the codes became finalized, when the president gave his assent to the codes, after that, the government started with the rule-making process. Even after, coming up with, before finalizing the rules, the government released even the draft rules for public consultation. And what we gather from the government, because we've been participating in that process, is that not a lot of people participate in this process. Not a lot of people offer their recommendations. And then once the courts, once any law is crystallized, then people start asking why, this aspect was not addressed. So it's always better to participate in the policy making process instead of criticizing things after they have been crystallized. I mean, you can do that as well. But if you're getting an opportunity, please come forward. And it's not very difficult, all the practitioners are more than happy to collaborate with law students. So they can always reach out to us or any other practitioner in this area and, offer to work with them, do the on-ground research for them, and help them in preparing a report for the government. So you can always do that, in addition to all the activities that you otherwise do. So yeah, that is, I think, one recommendation from my side. So keep reading, keep researching, and just keep making active contributions.
Correct, ma'am. Thanks a lot for such an insightful session, ma'am. And thanks for for sparing time for us from your extremely busy schedule.
No worries, Animesh, and thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.